All right, good evening. I'd like to call the March 29th work session of the Jackson County Board of Education to order. This is our April meeting and it is March. Dr. Howard will explain when our next meeting is, but we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance tonight and turn it over to Dr. Howard and go ahead and get into superintendent's comments.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Clarsey and our board for being here, and welcome to Dr. Brown. Very glad that he's here with us tonight. I want to start with a shout out to Dr. Briscoe and our team. That was a great groundbreaking, and I was very pleased with the turnout that we had. It's refreshing, and it just reminds us that our community appreciates the leadership and the work that our board is doing. So thank you very much for that. We do have quite a bit to talk about this evening. I want to start with what Mr. Clarsey alluded to, and it is a little bit strange. Things seem upside down sometimes, but March 29th is our April work session. Our official April board meeting will be Monday, April the 11th. Okay, and I just want to remind the community and our board that we are officially completely exited from Gordon Street Center. So we've had our last meeting at Gordon Street Center and the last events there. So we are going to begin our meeting on Monday night at Empower College and Career Center Auditorium. So the plan going forward will be our work sessions for most cases to be at the district office. And then of course our Board of Education meetings, unless they need to go somewhere for an event like this, will be at Empower College and Career Center's auditorium. So that's where Monday, April the 11th at the Empower Center. We had originally planned that one for the central office, but we've got some student recognitions and we want to make sure we have plenty of seating for our students and their families. So reminder, April the 11th, Empower College and Career Center Auditorium. Got it? Yes, ma'am. Actually, our board meetings are at 6:30. 6:30. Mm-hmm. Thank you for asking that. All right. If you'll notice, we've got some folks joining us this evening. Just one of the things that we're going to talk about further down in the agenda in just a few minutes is some athletic supplements and some of the many activities that take our high school and middle school campuses. So we have Mr. Lindsay and Ms. Palmer joining us, and so I'm going to navigate through the agenda, but we'll bring them forward in just a moment. So let's start with our facilities update from our facilities team. Mr. Gilbert and Josh.
Mr. Pat will lead us off.
Quick update on a couple of projects. We got spring break coming up. One of the things you probably may see or hear about is we are moving mobiles in at West Jackson Elementary School. Those will be happening over spring break. We're trying to get as many as we can in before summer. We get so pushed in the summer, and the company installing them actually gets very pushed in the summer. So as quick as we can get those in and get them set up. But West Elementary will be coming in next week.
How many?
So we're doing an additional 4 there, and they attach to the 4 that are currently there. So it'll be a pod of 8 there. The other ones will be coming in staggered between now and the end of the school year. But I'll keep you updated on those. But West Elementary will be the big one for this week. Jackson County High School, we start construction on the wrestling room and dance room this week. So that'll actually start on Thursday, putting the wall up and converting that space over, and that'll run for the next 3 or 4 weeks. So getting that project finished up. We're going to be putting out RFP for parking lot seal and restripe. You may see that one come out, and that's for South Jackson, North Jackson, and Gum Springs. And then RFP we're working on right now for furniture for the new school for Legacy Knoll. And the turf for East High is we're still on track for the summer for that one. I could jump to number 3 and do the update on. So update on the middle school, of course, just left the groundbreaking, and Andrea did a great job on that. We're working right now and plan on the April 11th meeting having a change order together to add back up to $2 million worth of items for the next meeting. We're working through looking at availability, the critical items that we can add back now that'll keep us on track to where we can possibly, it's assuming funding's available, we'll be able to stay on track and have that thing finished when it opens, is the goal. So as soon as we have that, I'll get that to you to look over. But
So if we want you to
Just
act
be
on it,
expecting
then we'll
that.
send it to you before, so you have time to review it.
yeah, be expecting that at that meeting.
Great.
Any questions at this point? Good. There are two more under facilities and operations. The first is revisions to board policy KG. That policy pertains to facility use requests and rentals. The changes, really, there's 6 of them, and they're designed to just bring it up to date with what we actually do. If you take a look at it, you'll see that we have changed from a paper process to an electronic process. We did that some time ago, but this is, and the changes are in red. This is just, again, to update this policy so it matches what we actually do. The next 2 changes really push the responsibility for inspecting the spaces and dealing with the cost that we need to be reimbursed back into facilities. We put that on the director of facilities rather than the school principal. And the reason really is to remove that burden from them. We're trying to take as much as we can off of them and take the responsibility on the support side. They are still, by the way, part of the approval process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an electronic approval
Yeah.
process. In fact, they're first on it.
They approve it before it ever comes
Right.
to us.
So they look at availability and what the request is and weigh in, and if there are concerns, they pass that on and we talk about it.
So it would first be the contact with director of facilities,
Yes, ma'am. So
and then the next step would be the principal. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I know it's their building, they need to make sure.
Oh, absolutely.
They
We
know
do
what's
that.
going on there.
Yeah.
That's
So somebody, if somebody wanted to use the facility, they would contact our office.
They go
Go
through
the
the
process.
there's electronic format.
Mhm.
The user fills it out. They make a request. They have to describe everything that they want and they need, and then they also read our requirements and acknowledge that. And then it goes directly into our system, which will alert the principal first, and then it comes back.
Yeah. Once the principal approves it, then it comes back to our office.
Right. And then we give them as well through the electronic system the estimated cost, so that it's all, everybody understands at every step what's involved.
And when folks pay for the use of a building, does that money go back in to be used in that facility where they have actually been, or where does that money go?
It goes, Stodge puts it in the general fund, and the idea first is to recover the cost, the wear and tear, and particularly the utility cost. But if the schools want to make a request for a portion, they come to Stodge, and she deals with them on that for a portion of it.
I just want to make sure that money follows where we need it to be,
Right.
those shoes.
It does follow. I mean, the majority of it gets used for facilities use.
Yeah.
Like improvements, repairs, but most, I mean, a lot of it is for the utilities and the custodial costs to have that event at that school.
We don't have a separate line item in our budget to cover those costs. So every time somebody does lease one, it's a direct impact on the facilities budget.
Part of that's reimbursement, for instance, for custodial needs, and that comes right out of operations budget, and then this is a way to reimburse that. Most are relatively small. You'll see in a few minutes. This one is the large one that we're going to talk about tonight. The other 2 items, one is just to emphasize that there's a $1 million general liability requirement. That's state law. That we have that, and that we have a written agreement. The other thing is that payments to custodians, from a HR perspective, those hours they work gets included in their payroll checks at overtime rates if they do that, but it's not paid directly from the vendor to the custodians. And then last, you'll see that we removed the written form that was there. It's no longer needed. I'll be glad to answer any questions if there are others.
So on the pay for the employees, whoever works, janitors, whoever, how is that fee scale for them set up? Is it just their flat hourly?
Unless it's
Yeah.
overtime or overtime, or they
Yeah.
fall into overtime.
And we charge the user a flat rate that we believe will cover us, we know will cover us for those costs. So that's policy KG, and it will be up for a vote on the 11th. The last item under facilities is 12 Stone Church's proposal to use the Empower Auditorium for their Sunday services. And you have their written proposal in front of you. They've partnered with us, it's my understanding, for some time, particularly at West Elementary and I believe West Middle. Others are listed as well. Those are the two that they shared with us. They have done this in the past in Barrow County and in Gwinnett County, and have used facilities pretty regularly over the years. So they've given you a look at what they need. It will be a Sunday only, from about 5:30 in the morning till about 2 in the afternoon. They would use the auditorium and the facility, the former band facility immediately behind it for their children's program. They'd use the lobby, of course, of the auditorium and the parking lot. And they are pretty much a move-in setup. They handle everything themselves and they take down. We've told them they could put a storage box somewhere on the site that they could keep their items in, and then that would help them move in and out every Sunday and wouldn't in any way interfere with our school operations. We've talked to Mr. Easler, and I don't know if you've been included in that or not. You have, okay. We believe it will have low impact on the school. That's just got to be enforced regularly to make sure that Monday mornings we're ready. If you look at there's some photos in there of how they set up, and then if you look at the last sheet, those are the estimated cost for a 1-year agreement with them. So if they use our custodians, which is required, if they require a sound tech and a lighting tech, the total would be about $147,000 annually. If they don't use those two positions and the equipment fee, if they were to bring all of their own sound and lighting in, then that drops to about $114,000. And those are straight costs right off the board approved fee schedule. So when we shared this with you before, the board asked for additional information. This is everything right now. It is not a recommendation, it's just information for you. If you'd like us to turn into a full recommendation, we can do that and vote on April 11th. Their hope would be to begin in September or January next year.
And so I understand, last time we talked about facilities was here. It's where they originally went, right?
They would like this one first, but we felt like at this point it was better and probably less impactful to go to Empower.
One of the differences, especially with that Empower one, is it's a standalone building.
Right.
That's the only building they'll be in. With this building, it was a little, once you're in the auditorium, you're in the school. So
We found in the past that happens pretty regularly. It's just hard to monitor every Sunday, so this is self-contained.
The middle school and the high school use this facility as well, so there are Sunday afternoon performances quite a bit, which has an impact on setup.
Yes. Well, there's there's wrestling that happens, tournaments that happen on Sundays, so.
right.
We've also informed them early on that any use of any of our facilities is always subject to school's priority first. And then talking to John about there may be times when Sunday is needed for a program that extends to the weekend or what have you. And in those cases, the church would be advised and they're fine with that. I don't think it would be very often, but it would be occasional.
Isn't there some community drama or something that partners with Empower now?
No. We've talked with the Jefferson Theater Group. about the possibility of partnering, but we have not done that yet. We held off because we wanted to see how the facilities were going to be used and what the needs were before we really committed to anything long-term. So we do not have a formal agreement with them at this time, no.
So if we were to do this, then we wouldn't be able to do that, maybe? And that would involve our students, wouldn't it, that they would have those
I think
opportunities?
that's a great question. I think the hope would be that could be well coordinated, and maybe it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday performance schedule, and that Sunday would be left available. If otherwise, then we would work with the church to coordinate that. I don't think the theater group would be in every week. They're going to be an occasional.
No, I'm sure it
production.
wouldn't be on every.
Right.
3 to 4 performances a year. And I did speak with them today about the possibility of doing them on Sunday or on Saturdays instead of Sundays. They were open to that.
I'd hate to miss that opportunity for our young people to have those kind of.
I think if I am correct, this is somewhat of a temporary request for 12 Stone. They usually do, they said a year to 2 years, because their goal is to find a site here. So one of the things we were thinking is if we could partner on the first couple of years, then some of that revenue could go towards upgrades, so that then when we partner with the community, that just your question about what happens to those monies. In this case, some of those monies could be dedicated right to some improvements at Empower's auditorium. And then when you are able to do a full-time partnership, potentially then you'd have an improved facility.
The church is actively looking for land now.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've bought any. They're
Weren't
hoping
they asking to begin with for 3 years? They wanted us to commit to 3?
They want us to commit to up to 3.
We told them we could do 1 year at a time and then consider renewals. And we just need to do that well in advance of what approves us.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to make that kind of commitment. So.
Does anybody have any more questions, or the?
Well, so this is not an action item though, right? Or is this
It's for consideration.
It's for consideration.
It can be if we want it to be an action item.
If you want to on the 11th.
No,
fine.
I'm not sure.
You'd rather wait?
Yeah, I'd like to talk
Sure.
to my power friends as well.
That's fine. That's all we have on this side of it.
I'd like to ask the board's blessing, if you don't mind, and go out of order a little bit. I'm asking staff as well, but we have East Jackson High School joining us remotely, and they've got senior night tonight, and they partnered with Jackson County High School to do sort of an overview of some athletics. So if you don't mind, I'd like to jump down to the athletic supplement considerations, so that they can be a part of that. Now, my technology skills are not wonderful, but I'm going to try real hard to get this rolling. And Brad and Mr. Wester, if y'all want to go ahead and come up, that would be wonderful. And can you hear us, Ms. Palmer and Mr. Lindsay? Okay, great.
And I'll probably need to adjust it quickly so it doesn't start the time.
Then I will move them up here.
Three times. And go to 1 minute. Every minute. And click back. And get back now. If I can. Sorry.
No, you're good.
There we go.
Right now, I am going to get real back thing so they can see this people. Is this okay?
I think so. As long as I can still release the slides for you.
Rusty?
Go ahead and just bring it back to your screen.
See, they're there.
They can see everything. And that way we can see this.
Okay. We're going to have to do it on the big screen here, but we can see you, okay?
Can Sean and them, are they talking or can you hear us?
They can hear and they can talk.
I'll do, it's going to be weird, I think, so if you don't mind, I'll do most of the talking. We appreciate you guys having us here tonight. For moral support. Thanks, Sean. And if this does go ahead, we'll go back while we're
Just tell
talking.
me what.
Sean and I just wanted to take a chance. We haven't gotten to do this in so long because of COVID. We haven't been able to come address the board and just give you an update or overview of what's going on in athletics in the county. And so we've sat down over the last few weeks and just wanted to have the opportunity to get in front of you, and we appreciate it, just to kind of give you, we didn't want to inundate you with statistics. but we did put some statistics on here just to give you an idea of how impactful athletics are in our buildings. And I think you know that. I know you know that. But we wanted to kind of put it into numbers and just kind of show you where we're headed, especially on both sides of the county. We talk a lot about the growth on the west side, but very impactful on both sides as far as participation, not only of our students, but of the adults in our buildings as well. So if you don't mind, I'll just click through, or you can click the next one. Just wanted to go through, first of all, Sean Lindsay is the East Jackson Athletic Director. I'm Brad Hayes. I'm the Athletic Director for today at Jackson County High School. And you can go ahead and click the next one. Again, didn't want to do too much with statistics, but we are going to walk you through. We tried to summarize everything as best we could. So just to give you an overview, about 33% of our student bodies in our two high schools are participating in sports. It's actually really close percentage-wise. As far as the East Jackson and the Jackson County High School, it's maybe 1% or 2% difference in percent. Now, what that looks like student body-wise, we have approximately 485 student athletes in our building right now. I think East is just over 300 because of the student body differences, but are roughly 33% in both buildings. And when we dug into the statistics, of those kids that are participating, 32% are participating in at least 2 sports. And then we could go into 3 sports and 4 sports. We actually both have multiple student athletes right now participating in 4 sports, which is pretty impressive. If you go back one thing, I'm sorry. So for both schools, again, very close, maybe 1% difference. We both had about a 15% increase just this year in participation. I can tell you just on the west side, that's just from the growth. I mean, we're getting so many students enrolled, they're just going to participate in things. Sean, I think it's just trying to recruit the building. So I don't know, Sean, if you want to speak on that. Can you hear us? Either way. Both schools have seen about a 15% increase in participation in sports. And again, I wish we could dig into all extracurriculars, but we were focused more on athletics. If you don't mind, the next one. Go ahead and go next. And so what we did next is we looked at the certified staff. And we found, again, it's very close at both schools. About 40% of certified staff, your teachers, are participating in coaching a sport. Again, not counting fine arts, just sports alone. About 40% of our staff is participating in a sport. You can see the numbers there. At East, it's 65 total coaches. We have 70 total coaches. That's when you factor in parapros, lay coaches, community coaches. That's where we're at right now. And then what we found when we dug into those numbers is 40% of our coaches are actually participating in a second sport, and a few doing 3. So again, the purpose of this is just not only to show you the overview and the summary of what's going on, but just how impactful it is for students and adults in our building. So we broke down, because we wanted to give you all a picture of what it looks like, and this might look a little bit overwhelming at first, of what it looks like as far as per season and how many sports we participate in. We haven't had a chance to talk to you guys in a couple of years again, and sometimes we get questions about new sports and things like that. So at both of our schools, East currently has 26 GHSA sports, what they consider sports. That's counting one-act play, literary, and you might ask why 26 there, 25 here. They have a dance team, we do not. Other than that, we pretty much have the same sports. There's not really a difference. Teams in the second column, or the second row, is talking about varsity JV 9th grade. And so you'll see right now, we currently have the same, and that most of the reason of that right now is that in certain sports, you're finding that we can't field a JV team, or East can't field a JV team, whereas in other, especially here at Jackson County, we are now looking at not only JV teams, but now trying to come up with a way to start doing 9th grade teams as well. Our head football coach went over to the middle school yesterday to meet with our rising 8th grade football players, and by far it was the biggest number we've ever had. We had 68 student athletes in that meeting. Of those 68, I think 52 played last year. So we are right on the cusp here of developing a 9th grade football, 9th grade baseball, 9th grade basketball. And so that's going to probably mean we need to grow with what we can offer athletically as far as coaches and things like that too. So, go ahead. Sean, were you saying something?
It's good.
It's the best he's ever sounded.
Is he at senior night tonight, probably?
It is
Senior night for soccer over there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And I'm sorry if you saw me, I was on my phone earlier. Our girls soccer team is playing at Loganville tonight. Pretty much the winner wins the region championship. So I'm trying to get scores. It's 1-1 at halftime right now. So they're sending me texts. And, yeah, go Panthers. So we wanted to break down by season as well. 9 sports in the fall, 7 in the winter, and 11 sports in the spring. Spring is a crazy time for athletics. And then team-wise, as far as JV, varsity, you can see the second number, 15, when you break down JV and varsity in 9th grade. And then again, if you look at the spring, you're looking at 18 different teams that we will host games for or be at games for or be tracking. And so when you total that all up, if you don't mind going to the next slide, or the next one after that, I'm sorry. We wanted to show you just how many events are taking place here on the school campuses. And you can kind of see as you go through, again, spring is the busiest event or the busiest season. And we tried to break it down by not only overall events, but how many are here at home where either myself or Sean or Chanda or Jason or one of our admin team has to be here to be the game administrator for that game. So in the fall, you've got 109 total events, 37 of them are home. Personally, that just getting to the home events, and I know Sean does the same, we try to be at every home event that we can be at. And so that does make it difficult sometimes to get to the away stuff, especially like in a game like tonight at Loganville, which we're playing for a region championship. Now, I'd rather be here with y'all, but it does make it hard. But it does make it difficult sometimes to be everywhere all the time. So you can see down at the bottom at each school, 349 total events at East, 386 total at Jackson County. And so if you'll click, it does it twice on this one for some reason. Overall, at your 2 high schools in Jackson County, 735 events scheduled this year. That's not counting playoff events, 327 home events. It's a very big part of what we do. We're happy to do it, but it's just a very big part of what we do at the school and a very big part of our community. Wanted to give you a quick overview without inundating you with stats. Right now, in the Director's Cup, which is the overall sports standings for our schools, both schools are in 3rd place in the region. If you took all the sports and did a composite, so 3rd out of 8 teams right now for Jackson County. Sean, how many teams are in your region? 6? Okay, 3rd out of 6. We are both, when you do the composite, we're both in the top 20 in our classification, the top 3rd. That's good. That's not where we want to be. I want to be in the top 10 every year. When we were 3A, we were getting there. Now that we're 5A going to 6A, I'm proud that we are in the top 20, but our goal is to always be up there near the top. We have had 13 athletes between the 2 schools sign letters of intent so far this year. That's not counting spring sports or anything that comes in late. We've had 3 All-American recognitions, 2 this weekend for Jackson County High School. 2 of our female wrestlers, both were in Virginia Beach, and they both earned All-American recognition. 10 All-State recognitions, but 1 state champion. Our first female wrestling state champion, Goldie Chavis. 5 region champions, either team or individual. 9 state placers, and 48 all-region recognitions just this year. That's just in the fall and the winter between 2 schools. So we're very proud of that. Again, we're always trying to get better, but that's where I feel, and I know Sean does too, we're headed in a good direction. So far, 19 out of the 25 sports teams at Jackson County and East Jackson have either sent a team or individuals to state tournaments. So again, love that to be 25 out of 25 every year. I'm competitive. If you know me, you know I am. But I'm pleased right now, especially with the growth on our side of the county and how we've had to manage that. Last 2 slides, and then I'll stop talking to you. Just giving you an up like tonight. Spring sports are in full swing. We've got tennis going on at Loganville. We've got soccer going on at Loganville. Sean's got a home match tonight with soccer. We had a big baseball game last night where we beat Greenbrier. We are both going to request to add esports next year. Video games are now a GHSA sport. I think that it can it can reach a part of our school that would get them involved in something. And I believe firmly if you're involved in something, you're going to do better academically. And so at first, if I'm being honest, 5 years ago, I thought that's crazy. But the more I've heard about it, the more I've done the research, and I know Sean feels the same way. It's just another avenue to provide something for our students to do, and they can compete for their school. So we're excited. That actually has a fall and a spring season. So we'll have to navigate that if we get there. We've already got coaches willing to do it if we can get that in place.
And because Sean can't speak,
Yeah.
I'm speaking for him, and he put in there 21 events in 5 days this week. So that
21 events in 5 days this week at East. We had that week earlier this week.
So we've got some coaches right now that would like to do this East for us.
Yes, ma'am. Robert Andrews for us. I don't remember who it was on the east side, but Robert Andrews is at Empower right now.
Yeah.
And he's more than willing to do it. He's already doing it as a club. So all we would do is become a sanctioned GHSA event or team.
Mr. Shaw is our robotics coach.
Yeah.
Quite amazing.
So if you click the next one, please. We are moving to Region 8-6A next year. We anticipate with the changeover with our two classes, our freshmen next year coming in and our seniors going out, it's an increase of
1 year, so we should be about 1750.
1750, which
So
puts
that's
us
without growth, which we
6A.
don't want any more growth, so that'll.
East Jackson will be moving to Region 8-2A. So again, that's something to navigate as we go through this. The two schools are quite different in size. And then classifications, I don't know if any of you read that this week. The GHSA did announce last week that they will be removing, essentially the wording was 2 classifications, but really it comes down to 1 classification that's going to be removed. So we'll have to see how that impacts both of our schools once that comes out in 2024. What it really is going to mean is bigger regions for everybody. And probably going back to, if you've been around a while, like sub-regions and things like that. So, and sports like football, maybe not having as many non-region games to play. So it depends on how we shape it. Just to summarize, and again, appreciate your time, and I hope I didn't go too long. Just wanted to make sure we came in, or we tried to both be here, and just talk to you about the importance. And we haven't gotten to see you in a couple of years because of COVID was such a mess for everybody, but athletics especially. We are so happy to be back out there playing again, and our kids are, and our coaches are. It's just a fun time. And just I hope through the numbers it shows you just how impactful. Again, you already know that, but just wanted to put a number with it of not only the students but the adults in our buildings and how important it is to our community. The students, the staff, and the community. Sports to me. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but sports it's your front porch of your house. I mean, it's what's in the paper every day. It's what's out on social media all the time. Again, I'm biased on that, but it is what we sometimes feel, at least, that we're judged on. And again, if you know me, you know I want to win everything I do. So Sean, I know, feels the same way. Sorry I had to talk for you, Sean. And that's it. I mean, again, if you have any questions for me, I'd love to answer them. If you have anything that you just wonder about athletics, the athletic world, anything with sports that we do participate in, sports that we might participate in, any thoughts, or if you don't, I'd be glad to go home and take my sinus medication. I've got a sinus infection. I'm not feeling great. So, but I very, very much so am appreciative to be here. I'm glad to finally get to see everybody in one room together.
Yeah.
So
We appreciate what you folks do for us too.
I appreciate
for our
that.
students. Yes.
2 things. One of the reasons that we are delighted that these ladies and gentlemen presented tonight was to update you, but also we're going to be recognizing some athletes at our board meeting on Monday, April the 11th, which is why we got some region and some individual winners that we'll be recognizing, and so y'all just make sure that you do that. And then they have requested some increase to some of our supplements, some changes, and so we'll be bringing that to you when we present salary schedules, and we wanted you to have this context and understanding some things that, like assistant game managers and so forth. There's a lot to manage, and from a liability and safety perspective, we feel like it's a reasonable request.
And obviously, if you have any questions during that phase, I'll stick around. And if you want to ask, I'm willing to answer anything you got.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure addressing the board. Thank you.
You did great.
And I think they're looking at you also. Ms. Palmer and Coach Lindsay, thank you for everything you do. Go back to whichever field, court, wherever that you need to go. Thank you for joining us so far. I apologize for some of the technical challenges. Y'all have a good afternoon. All right. Well, thank you for allowing us to do that. I know they are committed to that senior night. They're going to have students out on the field in a few minutes. There. So if you don't mind, let's jump back up to the financial update, and I'll turn it over to Anna. We got lots of good news coming at us here from the State Department.
Unfortunately, because it is still March, we don't have March financials, still finishing out the month. So we will have those absolutely completed and ready to present for you to look at April's regular board meeting. But there are a couple of things that have occurred over the last few days that I did want to bring to your attention. The first is that, as I'm sure you're aware, that the state approved the supplementary fiscal year 22 budget, and it was pretty significant and pretty impactful for us. We got about $1.9 million restored from austerity cuts, about $1.8 million in funds for a one-time salary supplement for our employees, and then about $3 million in midterm growth. So it ended up, our state funding increased about $7 million, or a little over $7 million for the midterm. So that was pretty amazing. The next thing that we wanted to mention was, again, the governor did approve a one-time salary supplement for all full-time employees. It would be $2,000 for full-time employees, and then incremented based on your employment status. Like if you're, return to work retiree, TRS limits you to 49% of that supplement. And so we have calculated it and are hoping to get your blessing on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, it's TRS is not me. But we are hoping to get your blessing to disperse this supplement to all employees, because the funding is based on our October CPI report, and of course some employees have left, we have hired several, and there's also some categories that aren't funded. So we would like to be fair and equitable to all of our hardworking employees and disperse this supplement to everyone. And it will end up costing the district about $1 million above what the state has funded us for that supplement. But we are in a very, very good place and can easily afford that. And I've already calculated it and kind of fit it into the budget, and with the increase in our midterm and the restoration of the austerity cuts, the funding will be there to be able to award this to all employees. Yes, Mr. Clare, so you can still get your gym at the middle school.
So I wasn't going to ask that, not yet anyway. Refresh me again on the employees that they funded.
Well, it's particular job code. So it's teachers, parapros, custodians, principals, assistant principals, superintendent, assistant superintendents, bus drivers, nurses. They funded food service workers through the food service funding. So it's really positions that we employ that the state does not fund anyway. So basically, if the state funds the position, they gave the bonus or the supplement to those positions.
On the allotment sheet at CPI, so we earn one bookkeeper, but we have many more. It's those kinds of things in addition to submit CPI, but then there's those that go above and beyond locally funded.
Well, and since we've got the money, I'd like us to do it across the board for everybody.
So we'll have this. When do we pay this out?
It has to be paid out before June 30th. We were, if you did support us awarding it to all employees, then we've already compiled a list and are hoping to do it in the April paycheck. Because the funding from the state will be in our April QBE payment.
we're gonna need to vote on that, if that's what we wanna do,
The folks that have earned, we have to disperse that. The vote would be for the local funding to be used to supplement those that were not under
Right.
the state. So we would need your support for that one.
So that would be an action item for the 11th, is that what you're saying?
Technically, I think it probably should be.
Yeah, it should be.
Okay. So if we have, any questions between now and then, we can email you and you can possibly maybe give us a breakdown, so
Absolutely.
we kind of understand these positions.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And we're both working next week, so we'll be.
Yes, yes, and I've got the detailed list. I've got the list of every employee that qualifies right now. And you can take that and compare it to the list of employees that were actually funded by the state. So I've got all that information, just let me know if you want to see it.
And we have dispersed all of the retention,
We did.
all
Yes,
that's been
yes,
dispersed to.
yes, the last one that you approved was in November, and we dispersed that, yes.
May and November, yes. All right. There's one other item. Any more questions? Please feel free to reach out, and we're happy to talk through the details of that.
Well, I think having the numbers before the month isn't finished is unacceptable, Anna, so next time we do this, we expect you to.
I would have been more than happy to project, but had that projection impacted the fund balance that might be available for that gym, I was a little worried about that. So, I really wanted to get concrete, hard numbers for you, Mr. Chris.
Well, that's what I get for asking. I guess we'll move to the next item.
So this last item is a huge, huge thing that we have actually been, all of us, the board, administration has been discussing and mentioning for years. This is something that we hope will be a recruitment and retention benefit for our PSERS eligible employees. And what we're looking at is having an employer match for those that are under that retirement system. And what we presented you is for the board to match up to $50 a month per employee. And I've given you some scenarios of what that could mean to them, because right now, if a PSERS employee works 30 years, their benefit, their monthly pension payout is $472 a month. It's very minimal. So what we're trying to do is supplement that and also put some emphasis on how important it is for them to invest and what that little investment along with our matching contribution could do to them in the future. I gave you an example of 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years of what they could accumulate, what would come out of their pocket, and then what they could actually have accumulated at the end of that time period. And it's pretty significant for those employees. And it would, right now we have about 235 eligible, PSERS eligible employees. If all of them participated in the program and participated at the maximum amount of the $50 match, it would cost us about $12,000 a month, and which is about $150,000 a year. Very, very, very minimal impact to our funding side, but huge for those employees. Because I think
It's like our food service.
food service, custodians, bus drivers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Highest retention need.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The
But-
areas
yeah.
that have the greatest need.
But for them to be able to see that, okay, yes, we can keep giving pay raises or pay increases, but this is going to impact your future.
Your retirement.
Like for somebody that if we did this, if they participated in it for 30 years, they would have contributed out of their pocket $18,000. But with a very, very conservative interest rate earning, they would have over $100,000 sitting in that retirement account when they got finished. $18,000 is what came out of their pocket, and they now have over $100,000. That's just huge
Sure.
for them. And so we feel like as far as financial impact on us, again, it's very minimal, but for them, And just to encourage them to get involved in investing and paying attention to their future and their retirement, and hopefully getting them to a place where they can retire, before they're 70, 80 years old,
Some of that will require a good bit of training too, because those folks just oftentimes don't even realize the implications. So that would be paired with some training and coaching a little bit on how to prepare for the
Because
future.
really, this is a pre-tax deduction, so even if they contributed $50,
They're losing
really
money.
the only difference in their paycheck would probably be $20 or $30. So it would be, yes, educating them and helping them understand that, but also showing them what it could mean 10, 20, 30 years down the road.
So can we get a little more information and understand what this looks like? Is
So
it
I
like
had the handout that Anna did today. I handed this stack to you. Those, if you'll take one,
One-pager.
hand one to each of the board members if you don't mind, Mr. Clarsey. She just got
Yeah,
that
thanks, Mom.
completed today.
I remember what she was talking about there. Don's got them home.
I just handed them to him. I just handed them to him.
Gotta get a rise out of something. Thank you, Mr. Clarence.
And we don't have to take action on this month. We just wanted to put it out there. This has been in our
information.
right. This has been in our strategic plan since the first time we started talking about employee retention back in 2013, literally. So I'm delighted that we're to a place that we feel confident that we can bring this to you. And I think in light of what we're facing with some of our classified staff recruitment and retention, anything that we can do to encourage them to come to us and to stay with us is going to be very, very important.
And it would be up to the employee. I mean, they could use anything from $1 to the $50 max to contribute, and we would match whatever they were contributing. So it's not like they would be required to do. They're not even wouldn't be required to participate, but just helping them see what small contribution could do, for future.
This is an amazing idea.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
So it's just information item right now. We can, if we wanted to try to start it in July, we would need to start working with AIG to make sure that it happened, and then that would need to be an action item, probably no later than May, I would think, would be a head start. But it gives you some time to think about it. It's somewhat of a no-brainer after you think about it for a while, but it's certainly for your.
Well, and again, the 140, I think it's 141, 142,000. That's if every single solitary one of our PSERS employees participated and did the max. So that's just worst case scenario. It probably would not be anywhere near that for our part of it, our expense for that option.
I would just add in too that the majority of these employees are in the operations division, and it's been something I've been hearing about and requests for many, many years. As Anna said, it's very significant. So I hope we can do it. It's huge.
So this employment group, historically, they've only had the state-sponsored plan.
That's it. That's
That's
all
all
they're
it's ever
eligible
been.
for is the
It's
SRS.
Yeah, it's horrible. That's the reason
And-
we have to work so hard.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, if you think about
Oh,
the
yeah,
cost of
yes.
having employees who are easily injured, I mean, we have people who work far beyond the time that they really should be
Because they have to.
working because they have to. And so, from a safety, and there's lots and lots of savings if you calculate it on that side.
But it's
Most
that
important.
information's in there. They actually earn $15.75 per year that they work. Then you take that, multiply it by the years that they work, and that's their monthly pension. So it's, I mean, if they work 10 years, you're talking about $157 a month for their pension. It's very minimal, and so we're just trying to help them.
Supplement.
Yeah.
That's good recruiting too.
Yeah, it's got a plan.
All right. Well, thank you to Anna for calculating, and Ms. Todd and our HR team. I think it's going to be a really important piece going forward. So we'll kind of let you think about it, and we'll get back to that. Speaking of which, human resources, Ms. Todd, updates. So you have a draft personnel recommendation report, I believe. In executive session. Executive session, you will have that draft. I do want to say that at our February 14th board meeting, we had 137 anticipated vacancies. So that included the vacancies we had of people retiring, resigning, plus what we were hoping that you did approve for our additional positions. So that total was 137 on February 14th. When I left the office today, and these numbers fluctuate as the hours go by in HR, but when I left the office today, we have 37 vacancies. So our principals and hiring supervisors have been busy. The fact that we posted early in January allowed us to have some really deep pools for our teaching positions. So I'm very pleased with that. And again, those numbers fluctuate as we get closer to the end of the year, but right now we are looking really good in terms of hiring. So that report that you'll see in executive session is there, but it will change when we get together on the 11th because we only had 2 weeks in between our last meeting and tonight. And I have told principals that they can have a little grace period because they are trying to get those last positions filled soon. So that's the report on personnel. I think Ms. Martha has given an enrollment report. We have one more day left in March, so I'll let you speak to that, but it could change. It will change.
We typically report that on the last day of the month, but of course we did this yesterday. So, but we still have seen a significant number of students registering, and this is really unusual to have that. I mean, normally it tails off at the end of the year, but no, ours is going the opposite direction. So, but you can see as the comparison to each of the schools, and there's growth in lots of pockets. So,
and with that being said, we're going to take some time over spring break next week, Anna and Dr. Howard and I, to evaluate this because this is not your normal thing that you see. And so when we asked for additional positions back in March, we were projecting based on previous numbers, and now we're almost there. And it's not even the end of the school year yet. So we're going to kind of look at this data next week and look at our hot spots and determine if we need to come back to you and ask for some additional positions if our class sizes are looking too big.
But again, midterm adjustment was healthy, so that will help fund some of those additional needs.
And then the last thing under HR was our athletic presentation, and I believe we'll have a supplement consideration. They did a lot of work looking at their athletic supplements, and we'll be asking you for some increases in some areas, just to support those coaches for all of their time and everything that you saw them present that they do. And so that will be an action item on the April meeting. Is that correct? The supplement scale, it probably needs to be made for
Probably
approval
May.
because they need to
Yeah,
see it, right? So
Gotcha.
we need to get it to them, right? But our high school leaders are going to probably need to know pretty quick whether or not. It helps with recruitment, I will say that, and we have a lot of positions posted for PE, and that means we'll need those coaches, and having those supplements helps with recruiting the top candidates, because that's the question they want to know is, what will my supplement be for coaching these sports? So it definitely is an issue that we would love to see get resolved quickly so that we can make contact with those candidates.
So there's a list somewhere already then, or that needs to be made?
There's revisions that were recommended, so we absolutely, and if we want to, I can send those to you.
Yeah,
They will
I'd definitely like to see it.
And
If
you
want
can
me to
preview it.
approve
Because
Absolutely.
it honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's a minimal request, about a 10% overall increase.
That's fine.
Talking about-
Whatever it is, I want.
Yes.
20%, 20%.
We can talk. Maybe do some trading.
Next time.
We can make sure that gets shared with you, absolutely.
Thank you.
And it's 10%.
And with that, leadership and performance, and before I turn it over to Ms. Dunbar, I just want to send a really, really tremendous appreciation to her. On Friday, we had a literacy kickoff. Miss Anglin joined us, and it was fantastic, and you had a great turnout, and it was very refreshing to see that many people interested in. It's almost like a reset. We really had a difficult time through COVID, and people are wrapping their arms around getting books in kids' hands and really embracing that opportunity for students to learn. So great job with that. I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but you did a great job organizing it, and I wanted you to know how much we appreciate it. So you can speak to it.
Thank you for that, and I will give that credit to this team who support me and support these students, because it was very much a teaching and learning effort. All hands on deck, and so I'm grateful for them. They are a talented bunch, and we had nearly 70 between our staff and community members who came out to support. We had adult literacy representatives, the public library was there, retired educators were there. It felt a little bit like a family reunion, and that was really nice. And just the pouring back into this school system from those who have served and continue to serve and who are just very interested in early literacy acquisition. So that was our kickoff. We gave away yard signs, and I brought some tonight in case anyone would like to have one. And we gave away card decals, and we will schedule our next meeting. We like to have those quarterly to keep that momentum really going. And our next step would be then to have those community members and teams come back around to say, here's how we'd like to help support that visible literacy initiative. It was very exciting. When we left, we were tired, but we were happy. So I appreciate that support and those comments.
When you have volunteers in the community who choose to come and have conversations about how you get books in the hands of young children, preschool, and birth to 5, that time frame, and really doing an outreach, it is a difference maker for our community. So it's great.
Yeah. We also have a spring assessment update. I'll let Ms. Wilson share with you. 'Tis the season is what we're saying around our tables at Teaching and Learning. 'Tis the season, as you will see with this visual aid.
Yes, so there's 2 attachments. The first one, hopefully this one. So basically starting the Monday following, a week following spring break, we get started with the GMAP test for grades. We start with 6 through 8, and then we'll do the 3 through 5 the next week. That's the other visual instrument. Y'all had asked about GMAP. We're part of that consortium. So this is the comparability study for the field test. So that's what those 2 weeks are prior to milestones kicking off that following week. And then, as you can see, we test all the way through to the end of school. So that's, and the other attachment is just the timeline for the GMAP test and how that's going to roll out. We're currently in year 3, so we're doing the 3-year field test this spring. And based on the information that comes from that, then they'll do a comparability study, present that to the Georgia Department of Education, and determine what the next steps are from there. But hopefully that will mean that next year we'll be in full pilot phase for that and run that all year. And then after that, we shouldn't have to do milestones at the end of the year. That's what the hope is. So that kind of gives you a picture of how that'll roll out.
So what does a kid's day look like then when they're doing these?
So the test in general, the tests start at the beginning of the day. We do all testing at the very start of the day. And the milestones have actually shortened in time. So most students are done by, say, 10:30, something like that. We have a few where they have extended time and lots of breaks and stuff like that that'll extend on into close to lunch.
And so normal class besides that? These kids are still having normal testing?
Yes,
normal
absolutely.
all that as well?
Absolutely. It's kind of those, we do different grade levels at different times, as you notice as we go through that. So those halls, for the most part, kind of shut down for testing during that time, and then the rest of the day is just normal school day. Any questions?
Which is much better than it used to be. I guess. We used to take a week and test
the whole shut the whole building down.
I have in my house the testing schedule is already being discussed. So
Well, and we try and keep that as short as possible for any given, group of students so that they get going, and get done.
Sure. It's the APs that my kids have been worried about. So.
It used to be the implication felt like it was heavier for a while at the elementary. High school now with the numbers of tests, although they've reduced the number of EOCs on top of AP, and if you have an ID program, there's a lot of overlay.
And we do have some AP testing in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Right, there is some
There's
AP
an afternoon administration in addition to a morning administration. We try not to double those up as best we could, but just based on what the kids take. AP doesn't give you a lot of leeway on your testing for them. You have to do it in their windows.
Right, the College Board pretty much dictates what you have to do with those. So.
This last item is a program update. I've shared with you the PowerPoint presentation. Dr. Rodenroth and her team, and Ms. Sain and I were able to meet virtually with our Jackson Connect parents. We had been watching those numbers. We had asked our teachers, and we had communicated. Dr. Briscoe had helped with a communication drive, and we had one applicant for this coming year, and no parents who attended our informational meeting. So the interest had waned over the course of the year. We were left with 20 candidates for next year and 2 teachers who were at that time dedicated to serve 20 students. And we didn't feel we could be fiscally responsible with those resources and move forward with that pilot program. So we were able to meet with those parents, offer them other options. If they still chose to pursue a virtual environment for their students, we would support them in getting into those other virtual environments, Georgia Virtual School, Georgia Cyber Academy, and then obviously enrolling full-time for those students who chose to do that. So we shared this with those parents. It was a tearful meeting. We had a lot of parents who were about 14 parents who signed on that day who were very dedicated to this program and really felt like it was the best for their children. We won't hesitate to explore options in the future if the interest is there, and we shared that with them as well. We didn't feel like we could responsibly dedicate 2 teachers to that program. So I wanted to give you an update on that and check in with any questions.
They realize there's hope. I mean, they're not totally left out.
They're not totally, no sir, they're not left out.
If that's how their children learn, there's opportunities for that.
Yes, sir, and we shared those links in there. We will support them in helping their children get into that environment. If they want to be in a Georgia Virtual School environment or a Georgia Cyber Academy, we'll support them in that. If they're Georgia Virtual School, they're still ours, right? And then obviously returning in person. I think the COVID has worn off. Everybody wants to be back in school, and we want that as well. So we did update those parents. It was an emotional meeting. We're thankful for those 2 teachers who took the risk to explore what that could look like. And
I would say they did a great job. I don't
They
think
did.
Delane is any indication of
No.
their performance, nor did you say that, but I think it's just families were ready.
They're just ready to come back to school.
Because
And we have
at one
taken
time-
care of those 2 teachers too, just so you know.
Yeah.
So we have made sure they have a place to be next year. So they have been offered contracts, and we were able to work with them and our elementary school principals to make sure they had a place.
Are they staying with us?
They are.
Because at one time, we did have quite a number of students that were involved in that program, so it really.
I think it opened with 45 or 47. And then over the course of that timeline, we dropped down we were at 20. And we had been dropping since, we had started at 33, we thought we were gonna probably be okay, and then as those numbers dwindled, and we didn't have the interest in applications or parents turning in for those meetings.
One of those teachers, I know personally, but during COVID, when it first started, she was by far the best teacher of all. But all my kids had that saying something, so. Well, that's just
Yes, sir. They're both with us.
Just for your information, all of the Northeast Georgia RESA superintendents charged RESA with trying to start something like this. And so RESA moved forward with making a great effort, and you're familiar with this, but it's interesting. It seems to be following the same path that Connect has. It was full-fledged, everybody wanted it, and then when it actually got to our meeting last month, most of the superintendents said the demand is just not there. Most people want their kids in school. So it's a cost, benefit factor you have to consider. So.
All right, and that's all. Thank you.
Right, and I believe that we have filled your bucket, but we do have a need for an executive session, Mr. Thursday.
We're going to.
I think Mr. Wester's gonna let us use his conference room, I think.
For a small fee, Ted will work that out with you.
Yeah. So for ease to not have to come up here, if y'all just go
from executive session. I will adjourn the work session. And I would like to call a special call meeting for the Board of Education to order for March 29th. All members being present. We do have an agenda item, so we would like to, I need to amend the agenda.
Just, you can make a recommendation and she can add it in the minutes.
Okay.
The call meeting is posted.
I'd like to make a recommendation to take action on personnel. I'm going to say, accept a motion to name Matt Stratemeyer as principal, East Jackson High School. I entertain a motion at this time.
I so moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to name Matt Stratemeyer as the new principal for East Jackson Comprehensive High School. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So that's unanimous. So we have a new principal at East Jackson Comprehensive High School.
Outstanding.
No further business?
No further business.
Stand adjourned. Thank you for your attendance tonight.
Thank you.